¡No! ¡No sabían que estaban aquí! ¿Cómo están, amiguitos míos?
Nexus, move, Nexus. Nexus. Блять, они добьют.
Крипы добьют! Я держу!
Super fun to hear the team communication. They're really calm at first. They're saying Nexus, and then actually realize, oh, we can actually finish this one. They start screaming in the end. And what an upset and what an absolutely insane performance overall.
Insane.
Yeah, and
The
that
Russos insane.
Favorites of the tournament versus a wildcard region. It had chokes, it had Baron steals, and it also had rebound
steals. I think
the combination of things that all happen in one game makes it one of the best games I've ever watched.
But that's also that fatigue factor that you're talking about there. A game that length on a day like this where you have to play so many as is can really get to people. Now, of course, we love reading your comments, so a reminder that you're invited to connect with us on Twitter to share your own personal favorite tournament moments using the hashtag #WorldsBigPlays. But gentlemen, yesterday saw some action-packed performances from the teams in Group A, and ultimately Rocks, Tigers, and Albus Noctuna prevailed and will be moving on to Chicago.
And Rocks Tigers have to be so relieved after that because we saw the craziest groups, we saw some of the craziest games, and the Rocks Tigers are the #1 seed, like everyone expected, right? If they didn't have all those crazy games and losses, you would just expect them to be the #1
Finalmente
seed.
quedó primero Rocks Tigers y segundo Albus Nunak.
As far as that group is, and now they have a week to try and get better.
And you have to remember that, of course, if ANX had beaten G2, that Rocks would not even have had the opportunity to contest for that 1 seed. So a little bit of luck there in getting helped out by the G2 roster.
definitely so.
And if you look at like the meta that changed yesterday, like people are really favoring a lot of playmaking champions. Alistar in the support role is much higher picked than Karma right now. 85% win rate on 11 wins. And also, if you
Tan
look
buena
at
la
the
Lisiana,
position,
cagamos.
Rek'Sai has completely gone off the radar. 75% ban pick last week. Didn't show up
Los
at all
7
yesterday.
y 1.
I like to see this change in meta. You know,
Meta, los 7 y 1.
group stages
Don't forget.
because you see
Don't
teams like
forget.
that faster actually pick up wins because of it. I think Rocks Tigers, one of the main reasons they got the first seed was because they picked up Alistar. And Gorilla started playing it. CLG, even in that game against
toda buena.
end of the day,
Capa.
gave away that Alistar to Gorilla. He was a beast in that game as well. So I really like to see these changes and adaptations. And I like to see teams being a little bit ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, a champion that a lot of people were saying falling away moving into the Worlds Tournament ends up being one of the top picks here so far. Now, if we learned anything from yesterday, it's that you cannot count.
Vamos a ver al tiro que piquean los brasileños. Toda la fe para que ganen los brasileñitos.
Expectations that were there coming into the tournament. So let's talk about some of the emergent trends for this group, starting with EDG.
Yeah, well, obviously the loss to INTZ was incredibly surprising. I called it the biggest Worlds upset ever when it happened. Maybe we've been supplanted by ANX.
Está rajeando la miau. Miau no raje.
After that, they kind of regained
No, miau.
some of their confidence. They were able to solidly beat AHQ and H2K, and they're still essentially poised to take first place in this group and should be fairly confident.
And I think it's super important to highlight, yes, okay, the first game was bad from EDG, but then the next 2 games, they were playing perfectly fine. Maybe not 100% just yet, but enough to win this group. So I think people saying, you know, oh, EDG, they might not make it out. They can maybe get upset again. I think what happened last week was a fluke with that one loss to INTZ. I think they're going to be the strongest team, and I actually expect them to win every single game today.
I will concur that they are the favorites of this group, but I think they did show weaknesses aren't playing up to their
EG, vamos a ver qué tal le va, weón, porque INTZ la tiene re complicada.
54% enemy jungle proximity pre 15 minutes, but Clearlove isn't returning that pressure and he isn't getting his own leads himself. So this is a team that I feel like has been gifted 2 really good early level 1s, but hasn't capitalized on it, and they need to play more effective to really make us believe that they're champion contenders.
Now moving on to their first opponent of the day, and the only team, as we mentioned, to hand them a loss yet, CB Lulz INTZ Esports.
And we hear this team often talk about how
Estoy publicando,
they
cabros,
can
que
make it out
ustedes
of
saben
groups,
que me
and
voy.
that's obviously step 1. You know, you got to believe it yourself, and I think that's
Buena,
why I
Suriplanta.
understand also why they
¿Cómo
think they
está,
can beat
cabro?
HK and AHQ, which really are the 2 teams they're looking at probably this week here, because INTZ, they have shown some good things. I do think that we got down to earth again when we got to see them, you know, play H2K and lose in the early game so quickly. AHQ didn't have any problems either really against them. And that puts everything kind of in perspective where that EDG upset really isn't what we should expect every time from INTZ.
Yeah, you can see why they're confident because of the win, but you can also see why you should temper your expectations. Their losses weren't very impressive, and if they're trying to...
Aquí estamos, pochero.
It's
Como camisita y andamos formados para el Mundial.
victory. I really feel like like they need to try and give Revolta as much freedom as possible, and I feel like he's kind of hamstrung himself a bit in this game.
Vamos a ver si Revolta alcanza a picar a Lecin, si se lo dejan, si lo costean.
And it takes away his playmaking potential. So for them, I would try and pick them onto kind of neutralizing laners in the mid and the bot lane and try and let Revolta play a...
Vamos Revolta, choro. Vamos Brasil. Aunque a mí me gustan los chinos en realidad. Vamos China.
The last hope we have now, really,
Tell me about them, Deficio.
We don't
How are they going
expect-
to save Europe?
Yeah, how are they going to save Europe? They're going to basically save Europe by winning the laning phase and fixing some of the problems they had closing out games from last week. I need to see a more active team when it comes to setting up vision around something like Baron.
Vamos a ver cómo H2K vuelve a demostrar que EU subs.
Fights, because we know they're good in the laning phase. We know they have, like, across the board all three lanes. I'm just going to give you quick numbers here. CSD difference at 15 minutes. Oramna, he's up 16.7 on average.
Voy a mirar igual contigo.
21 CS on average, and Rio is up 6 CS. So all three lanes are winning, but they can't use it to win the game.
Yeah, and that's to your point. I actually think they can get out of this group because those CS differentials aren't just good, they're spectacular. And if they just have a little bit of macro play and cut a few of the decisions down that were making them wrong, they're going to beat AHQ and maybe even have a chance to take down EDG. So it's a big if. The macro play, you can't just say, oh yeah, they'll get it. All you have to do is lane. The game is much bigger than the laning phase, but they have been spectacular in that phase of the game.
But the way they are failing is in the team fights. If you look at these team fights, Ryu's doing a lot of the initiation. Their backline is coming in late or backing out early. They're really not up to par. And I just don't see how you get out of this group without getting past EGHQ in team fights.
All right, but perhaps the antithesis of H2K, we've got to talk about our final team here last, certainly not least, AHQ.
Yeah, I've been really impressed about AHQ's late game so far. If you look at the team fighting against H2K, they have really good positioning. They're caught in the pit, but a clutch flash from Ann right there saves the entire team fight, and they're able to mop up. And if you switch over to the game versus INTZ, I was also very impressed because of their macro game. They actually got all three inhibitors without giving INTZ a single fight. And because of their poke compositions. And also, in contrast to last year, they're playing around their top lane a lot more. 80% of the ganks pre-15 minutes going up to Ziv, and Ziv is returning that favor with 37% damage share. It's actually the highest in the entire tournament and 50% more than any other top laner.
Yeah, really, the only thing we're looking at as a negative for this team is like some of the early laning phases, especially mid and bot lane. We obviously have Charing constantly switching. But that's where I get even more questions about that mid lane matchup because
¿Cómo vaya a ser Ali Metal? No soy Ali, weón.
really far behind, he gets pressure.
Violencia para los maracos, hermano.
Mid laner can start roaming, which is something he wants to do, but he has to do well in the laning phase.
Yo me hago gorda y ¿sabes qué me hago? Un elfo de sangre.
But obviously,
Real macho, conchetumare. Nada, weón.
playing with these two mid laners, they know
Nada menos ni nada más.
will give them the best result.
All right, well, we'll have to see which of these teams will pull away today. They'll be following Rocks Tigers and Albus Nox, who emerged from Group A yesterday. In today's battle for Group C, EDG and AHQ currently hold it.
Vamos. Taiwán, China en el primer lugar. Europa y Brasil en segundo.
Each team will play their final 3 matches today, and any ties will be decided immediately at the end of our last scheduled match. And all throughout the group stage, Riot Games 2 is online.
Si alguien queda empatado al final, te van a un tiebreak.
As they rotate through a list of unique, individually focused streams designed to bring you a more gameplay-focused experience of Worlds 2016. Now, a reminder that the newest addition to the championship skin, Zed, is available in client. 25% of sales from the championship Zed and Ward skins will contribute to the world's prize pool, directly raising the stakes in the fight for the Summoners Cup. Now,
¿Tú vas a ser el ciel del Mundial?
Gaming in week 1, but one upset victory won't satisfy the CB LoL champs.
Yeah, we want more than just one win, one upset against a big team. We really want to do something like solid. We want to get out of groups. We want to be on the quarterfinals. We want you to be there. So we are still not slightly satisfied now.
Igual la CFC.
Well, we'll see if they can do it. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Devin Pyrotechnics Young. Joining me on this cast.
Sí, what?
These games today are Mitch Krepo, Vorspals, and Jake Spawn Tiberi. Gentlemen, how you doing today?
Good. Ready for some League of Legends?
Mano, qué guay Silvana. Los elfos de sangre van a ir a mamar verga y a calmar las pasiones.
Yeah,
vamos a empezar.
Already so far this Worlds. Now let's take a look at what we've got on deck.
Vamos a empezar
facing off against INTZ
con el streaming.
Let's review the starting lineups though. Let's not waste any
Estamos
time.
streaming en la primera partida.
The top lane, it is going to be Mouse prowling the jungle. Clear Love In the mid lane, Scout starts today. ADC and support, Deft and Mako, and their coach,
Sí, bueno,
Rapid Star.
Yeah, loving the
ver qué
crowd
onda.
here, the love they have for EDG, but there's also plenty of people cheering for the team on the other side, INTZ
Vamos.
Esports. And they still have the same
ENTZ.
roster going into today. It's Yang in the top lane, Revolta in the jungle, Talkers is mid lane, Mikau is AD carry, Jockstone support, and Abaxial will be leading them in the coaching position.
Absolutely. Now, I think we all recall what happened the last time these teams faced off. INTZ, they took a really massive upset over the Chinese favorites, but, I mean, we've seen a whole lot of crazy stuff since then, too.
Yeah, ever since EDG has been on the upswing, however, and been kind of showing up some weaknesses in their place, and INTZ, apart from that one game where Yang and Revolta really worked together, they've been struggling, I feel, to find another strategy that works.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with that. I think the only
La única partida que ganó,
was actually what happened in the bottom lane. The
los
fact that
brasileños se la ganaron a los chinos,
double
weón.
kill, it looked like Mouse was just continually overreaching. He was very nervous coming into his first Worlds performance, and you expect him to bounce back as he has done in
Yo creo que Brasil debería ganar sus
Yeah, definitely.
3 partidas hoy día para poder
Kind
clasificar.
of Mouse digging his own grave on that Abilia pick, you know, constantly going for the challenge.
O si pierde esta tendrían que pasar ciertas cosas más extrañas para que pudiera
Giving
clasificar.
up the pressure for his team to win in bot and mid. We'll need to see if
Tendría
they
que
have
perder a
similar
HQ,
draft, and
weón.
definitely need to track what Revolta gets his hands on in this draft.
100%, because already that's the top lane and jungle duo that took them out. The Na and the Lee Sin both erased, and that just leaves a big hole in that top side of the map.
That's what you do if you get beaten by a team. The best way to adapt is actually just to get rid of the comfort picks. What worked last time, force them to adapt at least.
Vamos,
Obviously,
Ginger.
the tournament meta in mind, we have high priority on Nidalee, and at least with Nidalee out, Lee Sin out, there's a good chance EDG may
Calmado,
go for
acá está el
early.
weón endemoniado.
Brilliant Soul Ban, we've been seeing a lot more of that just generally lately, and won't be making an appearance this time around. INTZ back to them for the first, or the final ban, I should say.
You also never know because Clearlove is a guy that just loves his Skarner. So
Aguante Deft, hermano, aguante
Sun's
Deft.
still running around. Evelyn's running around. Checking out his solo queue. He's also got some Kazakhs games in there. Still undefeated on Kazakhs in solo queue as well as competitively this year. So he really does play anything. The Hecarim is also the big pick because if they want to
Se
go
banearon
to the fight, they will lock
Vecina
down.
a
We've
Revolta.
already seen some of that, of course.
Aurelion baneado por si
EDG, they
acaso.
haven't lost a game since they did to INTZ here, and with that Aurelia banned away, Syndra's left open, but we've seen a bit less of it prioritized this week.
yeah, Syndra's still a very strong middle laner, though, especially in that matchup here.
Buen pick.
We could see Scout just go to town on Talkers, and he'll have a hard time dealing with this very oppressive pick. We'll likely see if Vladimir come out, but he has an item spike point with the Spirit Visage where the matchup
Aguanta,
goes in. But
Alejandro,
if
no sé
Syndra gets paired with a really aggressive jungler, it's very hard to take control of that lane, and that could snowball into different lanes.
Yeah, and that's what we're expecting. Whenever Scout picks up something with the priority in mid lane, can get that shove, you expect him to go top lane and help out Mouse. We saw it in the one Scout victory already, and that is something historically EDG has done well.
But INTC is definitely looking at Mouse in the top lane too. One, they got rid of the Aurelia, which he played last game. Didn't want him to play that again. And then they got rid of like the comfort top lane pick of the tournament, which is Poppy. Can be played in a lot of losing matchups, can fall behind, but because of the margin of error that the champion gives you, you can have a high impactful teleport ganks in team fights. And that is kind of a style that EDG historically have liked playing.
Yeah, it certainly is. They want to get
El ban de Poppy también es súper bueno como comentan ahí, weón. Es muy buen campeón cuando esté ganando y cuando esté perdiendo.
Came out, it's like, all right, if we're going to play carry, this guy's playing carry as well, not letting him go back to a comfortable tank.
Absolutely not. And on the side of INTZ, they lock in the Alistar. We've seen some big plays made with that. Question marks, though, to see if Joxer's going to be up to that challenge.
Yeah, the goal for INTZ is to have serviceable mid and bot lane here that can survive, while Revolta gets a good jungle matchup that he can then translate the pressure into the top lane. With the Alistar pickup, it can get beaten by a lot of range supports. Deft and Mako have shown an affinity for lane bullying overall, but if they match melee versus melee, then maybe Mikau and Joxer will be just fine enough to go even.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is we have seen a lot of that Nami come out of Mako at the moment. That would be the lane bully. However, they do like playing Tahm Kench into it in the Chinese LPL. You're looking for the aggressive level 2, you're looking for the Q and the W and stunning them up.
Yeah, still a favorable lane for the Tahm Kench because he has an element of range poke, and he can also completely negate the combo.
Tan Kench está netamente para salvar de la combi a
Devour
Deft.
is a very big punishing tool, and we've seen Alistars lose the trades on the back end.
Eso va a permitir que Deft vaya una weá a amar. Yo cacho que Deft puede ir Jhin, weón.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I feel.
Dejo pequear
You know,
Jhin ya que tiene
don't have
Tan Kench que lo
choice in that
salva.
lane anymore. All of a sudden, if it is a hyper carry, you want to delete them first. Tahm
Una
Kench
Claudine.
is way too tanky. However, you know, there's just no good choice for that headbutt pulverize.
Absolutely. On the other side too, or the other part of it, EDG lock in the rec sites is something that we didn't really see yesterday, but was very popular earlier on.
Yeah, not at all in week 2. Didn't see a pick or ban. Clement was touching it on the analyst desk. He had a very high pick ban rate. I believe something along the lines of 75% in week 1, and then suddenly disappeared. But Clearlove is bringing it back.
Yeah, he's got an 83% win rate. He played that in Gragas in pretty much 92% of their games as well in the LPL. So that is definitely a pick that he will go back towards.
But so peculiar
Espérate,
that
esta cam, ¿por qué está tan grande esta cam, weón? Debería estar más chica esta cam.
early aggression, gang potential, adding CC
Debería
here.
estar
That's for
así.
the more sturdy Skarner with the level 6 kind of spike for the ganks. But it's quite a peculiar draft that neither side really prioritizes at least.
Yeah, I really do find that strange because when you have a look at this draft, it's all based around mid-game pick now. But there's still things like the Ezreal left available that is so hard to pick up in these team fights.
And now Deft is looking for an answer to the Caitlyn Alistar. Does the signature Twitch hover, but I don't think it's going to come out. It's likely going to be something with at least a range element.
Yeah.
Jhin looks super likely on paper, but I'm liking the Caitlyn Alistar because Caitlyn blocks some of the weakness of an Alistar in lane, and when you combine them, you obviously have that combo and trap potential.
Yeah, we've seen INTZ.
Vamos a ver si los brasileños les salen las combis de Alistar tan bien como les salieron anoche a Rockstiger contra SLG. Los flash combi que tenía Gorilla de Rockstiger eran buenísimos con el... Eran instantáneos, era flash W Q al tiro. Sin pensarla, sin nada, era como si la W tuviera el doble rango. Esta weá es un maestro con el Yo la he hecho, pero es terrible peluda hacer rápida, guía como la hace. O sea que no te puedan flashar el flash, tiene mucha habilidad. Vamos a ver cómo está el brasileño, eso sí, weón. Igual le contrillaron con el tapo, así que...
That has been his tendency very often in the
Vamos
later
a ver
stages.
qué pasa.
However, if you look at the team comp with a tanky Rex side, with a non-trading...
Igual me parece raro que no hemos visto casi ninguna, creo, H en todo este torneo. Creo. Ah, bien meta y de repente en el torneo ¡pop! Desapareció.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Rumble now gets the push in a lot of these matchups, and also sets up games, especially when you're looking towards something like the Rexa incredibly well. If Clearlove does get ahead in his pathing in this game, there's a big target on Yang. Scout roaming up there, he's going to have to survive.
INTZ will have to be
INTZ.
in the top side of the map.
INTZ Corazon
We have Syndra, which always has pressure on the Vladimir early, and the Skarner can't really influence. He has kind of one shot on the level 3 or 4 gank. He can still surprise, you know, if he gets a CC off. People can get surprised by the boost and the speed. But it's quite easy to dodge.
And this is where I want to see the respect coming out of EDG, because the only way that gank works is if he is behind you. So they need a ward up behind them, make sure they're not over pushing.
I think they've certainly learned their lessons from the last time they faced off.
Aguante, Pikachu,
you call that a little bit of hubris. EDG definitely not going to take anything for granted this time around. And it's a dangerous composition to be playing into. We've seen some Skarners really be able to go off to start.
Y nos vamos.
But we want to know who you guys think is going
China y Brasil. El rematch que lo definió todo. ¿Sorprenderán o no sorprenderán nuestros amiguitos? Vamos a ver qué tal les va a los queridos chicos. Vamos Brasil, vamos Brasil. Vamos Chino, vamos Chino. Siempre son divididos.
Beautiful performance last time. I want to see what they have prepared.
Yeah, gotta keep our eyes on the top lane and the jungle, but we shouldn't be surprised if suddenly Deft and Mako whip something out and a solo Deft happens.
Revuelta con Skarner puede hacer daño.
Excited for this matchup.
Oh, it's going to be great, and definitely want to keep an eye on that bottom lane early on, but we will have to be watching the jungle matchup every lane. Who are we kidding? It's Worlds 2016. Group C, we're going to find out who makes it out today. It all starts right here with EDG versus INTZ.
En el lado rojo esquina.
And as they get onto the rift, what you really have to look for is the creative level.
Tenemos a
because Deft Mako
very well. Brazilian. Y en la esquina inferior izquierda
Any team that has
tenemos a los magos.
Aggressive level 1s should definitely scrim CLG because they also have a penchant for that. Some really creative
a los Reyes de China.
Teams just like noise.
Invicto en todo el semestre. Y su única derrota contra estos brasileños que nos vuelven locos.
it's to just
Eduardo Gaming.
a fraction of a second.
So they get a little bit quicker and
Así contra China enfrentados una nueva vez más, como cada mundial de fútbol.
No, they just walk away. A few pokes and no damage.
Two pokes and no damage.
That's 15 gold.
Yeah, that's worth.
It's as close as you can get to playing Dominion.
Ooh, too soon. All right, so as things settle into it, we talked about the early pressure.
Lo bueno dijo es lo más cercano a jugar Dominion. Todos quedaron así como, el mapa que falló y lo sacaron, por favor, me encantaba, yo jugué un año Dominion.
Liner's trading pattern is basically charge up his Qs on the creeps, and then once it becomes empowered, get a good trade-off. But Scout's trading pattern basically means he wants to hit the range creeps with the spheres and talkers at the same time. That is a kind of ideal scenario here for Syndra.
So what you should see over and over again is kind of Scout walking up when the Qs aren't charged, doing exactly that, putting down as much harass as he possibly can, whilst not missing out on CS. One thing I will say about Scout, he's a very good pushing mid lane. He actually has very good control over the wave. He's going to crash, and when he
Mira,
gets the lead...
mete daño. Ah, no, todavía le mete el cadereo del año.
For what seems to be red into Raptors, into enemy blue, but look at this. Wolfsprite spots him here. A really creative jungle start from...
Cacha el junglero revolta, cachó que... O sea, el Cliplock cachó que le podría robar el blue y fue a iniciar el top con el... y smiteó el...
And it's also great if you think that your top lane is going to get dove off just a level 3 on top side.
Cacha, y Skarner ahora sabe que va a estar recién en camino para el blue porque lo vio al rojo. Mira, increíble jugada de EDG, weón. Increíble jugada táctica de EDG. Van a robarle la weá porque saben perfectamente dónde está, weón.
Going in on it here, they do grab themselves a small golem and they pick up the vision from the Scuttle Crab, still contesting for it, making life a little bit hard for INTZ. They've definitely learned their lessons.
Yeah, really working well together here, EDG. They're using the push from both bot and mid to really aggressively contest that blue buff so early.
That's 4 members already in Revolta's jungle, and that's going to be taken away. See whether they just try and give it over to Scout. They're going to fight.
¡Oh! Cuidado que Joker se mete. Brasil está en problema, me cago, gelea.
Joxer has to flash on this one. EDG have the stronger skirmish.
Joker ya flashó y primera sangre para Clearlove y el blue se lo lleva a Scout. Esa wea fue con la rabia de haberle regalado el match la semana pasada. EDG y China se venga. Y dejen ventaja a la jungla enemiga. Pero es rico, Diego.
They said, you know what, we have double push mid and bot. We have a Wolfsprite to defend our left side of the map. We're going to aggressively invade and contest top right.
Yeah, you can see Scout here
Guante
actually
el like.
at the Vladimir charge.
Mira cómo se metió a Alistar,
That
weón.
means they've isolated the duo lane, and unfortunately there's just nowhere for Joxer to go. The juke means he's back in auto attack range. He falls down.
Burn a couple of summoners, but they end up trading for the kill. Definitely worth it in the end, and they already start to amass themselves
spotted.
a good gold lead. Whereas Revolta goes in to try and take out the blue buff. It is spotted by Clearlove, who doesn't quite have smite up. Still a dangerous place, and he decides to back off. This time, he cannot get as aggressive as he would like.
Yeah, that must have been a ward from the top laner here. So EDG, not only do they coordinate and engage on the right side of the map, they told Mouse to go ward to blue buff himself, and again they spot.
Ahora sí que Brasil la tiene difícil, weón.
Here, and this Rek'Sai Skarner matchup is clearly being won by Clearlove and his teammates.
Yeah, it certainly is. And you can see that even though Mouse is falling behind now in CS,
Mira la ventaja que va a tener ahora Scott 2 level 6.
Continue to push this advantage. And what we think should be
Mucho antes que todos.
Vladimir, once it hits that item spike, it's just going to be delayed a little bit more because now all the pressure is in the Syndra's hands.
Matchup's incredibly blue buff and lost chapter dependent. So when a Syndra gets access to both chapter and push and bully Talkers at the same time, Talkers wants to survive, get at least Negatron folks there, and build up to war.
Hay un bicho culiao en la pared mirándome, me hacía así con la antenita, weón.
He's got to not start getting those stuns as well. He
Era como chico, largo y volado.
Scouts already amassed a decent gold lead on him, just individually, and you can see pinging down bottom right
Good
now.
job, good job.
They want to go on a roam here.
This is another turret dive. Already they've pinged the turret and forced the wave here. They're going to use that
Papalupa. Desposicionamiento del team. ¡Oh! ¡Se fue Skarner! ¡Revolta! ¿Qué hiciste? ¿Cómo te fuiste? ¿Pero cómo no los viste, Revolta? No te lo creo. No te lo creo, Revolta, weón. Horrible Revolta, weón.
The cascading pressure from the mid push into a rope. Jungler.
Tenés mid mía, weón, y te calidad y revolta. ¿Por qué, weón? Hubieran hecho un 3v3 ahí.
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic executed, but what I want to talk about is the communication.
El mid no rotó y no.
Learning Mandarin on their Korean members, you know, they have 2 hours of
Largo tengo el pico, capa.
That is the payoff because that is a play set up 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, what a scripted play here from the point of view of EDG. Everybody knew his role here. We were doubting Mouse in the top lane. We were talking about how he wanted to play too far forward, leave his mark on the World Championship. But right now, he just has to be a role player. He has to be passive in the top side while his team is leveraging the champion side advantage. Look at this. Double roam. There's nothing Mikau and Juxta can do here. What a beautiful combo stun from Scout. And then Mako's tanking Master's turret with the great help. It almost looks too easy.
Yeah, it certainly does. And Scout actually got both orbs to stun. The first one sets up perfectly for the Alistar. He throws the second one out for the Caitlyn on a mechanical micro level. That is so tough to do.
Yeah, and Revolta's trying to get something back
Oh,
by grabbing
va a morir.
But Clearwater is right.
Estaba a morir acá, weón. Estaba desesperado, loco. ¿Qué están haciendo, weón? Pero bueno, igual tenían ventaja, weón.
Yeah, the problem is with the information.
Lo bueno
on
es,
the map,
lo hubieran
top pushed
sacado,
in,
weón.
mid pushed in, bottom not anywhere near a turret. If they're going to get an objective back, the only one available.
Tienen largo y volado, weón.
There's only the smallest.
Mi pene no fuma, cabrón, mi pene no fuma.
is so far behind.
Super clean game.
Entiendo que están hablando.
Almost a complete opposite from what we saw from INTZ versus
¿Qué fuma soy yo,
first
weón?
game in week 1.
Mis pulmones, a lo
And,
más.
it has been every other lane but top, but that might change with
No
Deft
sé.
Mako moving up towards their Yang. He was the one who was the beneficiary of a lot of help last time around, but he is about to be in a whole world of trouble. There goes the equalizer. Yang now goes up. He's stunned. He doesn't flash this one. He's going to burn it now, but Mako and Scout and Deft are right on top of him. Throws down the hammer.
Oh my god.
Mako is able
Al
to keep
pico,
Deft in
weón.
this.
And another play off Scout's roam. He just keeps shoving
Me
up
cago,
mid lane
weón.
and
Def.
keeps leaving into fog of war, and INTZ is not respecting it.
And this is why so many players out there think Syndra first pick is so incredibly strong. We've seen it fail in a couple of games when people are not.
¡Ah, el bicho!
But it will always
Me había
have
olvidado
to
que
push the
existía.
ladder. Right now, Scout has to be
Era
careful.
raro.
That's going to
No,
be
tenía alas, no había volado.
He's not going to go down from that, and Talkers and Revolta.
No había cachado,
Really nice
Salsillo.
max range flash there. He burns the summon spell as early as he possibly can. Knew the Skarner was coming in as well. But one more time, that's a kill
Igual,
picked up.
vamos a ver de
It's
nuevo.
already a 3,000 gold lead.
But just look at your minimap. Yeah,
Es que deberían haber caleado el mía y no puede estar ya tan adelantado en línea si sabe que lo pueden diviar y están diviando Edward Gaming. Mira, mira.
And because with this very roam-centric playstyle, we actually ignore the fact that
Tenía que haberle empujado al Sabo para que no se lo tragara, weón.
split pusher in the bot lane, and he can move around the map so quickly here. Very mobile composition from EDG.
And that's exactly why there was no cross map already.
De antemano, gracias por su comprensión. Buenas tardes. Bienvenido una vez más. Sé qué va a estar diciendo. Oye, Mus. Mira, intenta hacer algo, Blaze. Cambia de línea ya. EG, o sea, de G y de Z.
EDG is already looking at a 3,000 gold lead, 4 kills in the lead. And the first brick has been taken here. They're challenging another blue buff here. What's INTZ gonna do to get back into this game?
There is so little, it seems. They're down so much gold right now. As you said, they're going to be losing out on another dragon. And a big part of it has actually been clear.
¡Hola, Nicolás! Dile Nicho, este enfermo culiao. ¿Quién es Nicolás, weón? ¿Cómo te voy a llamar Nicolás López, weón? Mira esa wea. ¿Por qué que si voy por la calle iba a saludar a un coleado que se llama Nicolás López, weón? Una mierda, un weón cualquiera. En cambio, si yo voy por la calle y veo al Nicho, conchetumare. El Nicho, weón. Esa wea es como el camarón de Rocket Power, el Nicho. Es un personaje, weón. Y ahí la media araña en la pared, la concha de su madre, qué wea.
Now you're seeing Kim back on comfort, being able to control that early game and the pace and tempo at which this game is going to be played.
Yeah, I think you guys said it great, that it's just like looking like a movie script at this point. EDG are having absolutely no trouble. 10 minutes into this game, they have a very dragons, first brick, gold, kills, everything. Every checkbox, they've got it. And they have, as you guys said, champions like a really solid hard engage.
You should also look at the things they do that they don't have vision, but because they're extrapolating information. They have 2 deep wards at the
Oh, por favor, Dios mío.
on the right side of the map. They don't spot anybody there or in the bot lane. There was panning out really. These boys give you information that there's nobody there, which means there's only one part where the enemies can be, which is in the left side of the map. That's why EDG was so hesitant to step into that jungle, because they didn't want to walk the Alistar and the Skarner.
And this is actually setting Mouse up for success as a split push. You need that information to actually be able to push forward up to that tier 2. All of a sudden, he saw Jace backs away, goes back, picks up Krogs, not in any danger for a counterplay to happen on the map.
Yeah, INTZ just haven't been able to find an opening. EDG are keeping the distance as safe as they possibly can, and later swapping up to the top was matched completely by Deft and Mako. And now EDG are looking to collapse again. There's a tower here, but that didn't stop them last time.
Yeah, and EDG, they're making moves in full vision, sometimes telling INTZ, we're going to walk top lane, there's nothing you can do. Well, they obviously base it on a lot of river control that they have here. They had a few pink wards out in this river. They really just want to push up the mid lane with Scout, then move him over. Yes, they can't kill Vladimir one-on-one, but they don't need to. They're really playing well around their advantages, and they're letting them cascade into different lanes.
That's just why they wanted to secure the 2v2 again. I mean, when you have won that 2v2 so incredibly hard, when they swap to the top side of the map, there's no objective bottom regardless. I actually think this is an opportunity where INTZ probably should have sent the 2 members bottom lane, look for a teleport play, and just trade objectives, because right now, in a raw fight, they just don't have the items to go with EDG.
That was such a big card, losing out on that 2v2. I mean, you could talk about players specifically, because Deft and Mako, known as one of the best bot lanes, if not the best bot lane at this tournament. Still, you match the Tahm Kench up against the Alistar, you start to see why they value this as a different pick. Clear Love moves up towards top side, they force them off, and this is going to be another tower.
Because Scout is around again, and they don't know where he is exactly because he's hiding in Fog of War. And every time Scout disappears from the mid lane, you gotta bet your money on it that Talkers will be communicating to his team, guys, this Syndra's roaming. He has a QE from out of Fog of War, be careful. And they're just using pressure to disincentivize people from even considering defending their objective.
And I think further to that, you have to look at what Mako is doing at the same time, because he's ducking into brushes that he knows aren't warded. And if the Tahm Kench and Syndra meet up, especially if Clear Love's on his way, that is just instant global pressure that you must respect. And EDG is playing this to a T.
And Jockster is still level 5 on that Alistar. He's been thinking of pulling the trigger, going for a flash combo, but he's playing against the Tahm Kench. We talked about it in Champions League. A simple Devour can negate that entire flash combo, and suddenly it looks like INTZ is running out of options.
Yeah, they really have very few. Their composition was going to be very pick-centered in the mid-game, but unfortunately the mid-game's arrived for EDG, and INTZ are still stuck in the early. They are so far behind in this, the only way they have back into it is to try to get a quick pick, but you have the Tahm Kench. It's denying so much, as well as the similar map rotations from EDG.
And another buff here to Destiny. Blue buff, take their own on the back end here. Look at the experience as well here. Revolta is barely even with Killok, but some other members are pulling ahead, I feel. And it still is pretty even, actually. So it feels like EDG should be further ahead experience-wise. But at least INTZ is doing a good job catching up.
Yeah, at this point, INTZ kind of have to hope that EDG just gets sick and food poisoning from eating all of those blue buffs and red buffs. There's really not much more left. Yang does secure a turret that gives some much-needed gold to them.
Yeah, Yang's actually up 30 CS, so whilst we have been complementing the map play, Yang has slowly built himself up a 1v1 lead. You know, you have to give respect to the top lane of INTZ. We said if there is an area they're going to take advantage of, it would be that. But at the same time, you have to say Mouse this time around is just letting him have it. He understands that all he needs is the equalizer. Let the Jace get a little bit ahead. It is not needed.
And the curtain call opens up, and they throw the equalizer. All of a sudden, a massive collapse for Voltus here. Macau's going to heal, but that's not going to keep him alive for much longer. They throw everything on him as he's slowly struggling away. Jockster getting swallowed by Mako, and Mouse will pick up the kill. 1 for EDG.
But actually a lot burned. When you have a look at that, you thought Macau would fall down, Jockster would fall down. However, Revolta able to get in there with some clutch slows and save them.
But it feels like EDG is always fighting with a purpose. That wasn't just a random pickup. On the back end there, they force him to base. They will get this Herald right here, and at the same time they moved over to the bottom lane, but they have to back off. So maybe they miscalculated a little bit on the engage there. The idea was right, get it to 1 or 2 kills in the top lane, brute force that, you know, curtain call and the carpet comes out, but at least INTZ held off on that plane.
Yeah, you know things are looking pretty good for you when your worst case scenario is EDG is only getting 1 kill and then nothing else.
Yeah, there was cross-map play though, a little bit chip damage bot lane turret. Yang is kind of been isolated here, and if you look stylistically, if there's something you want to do against an INTZ lineup, it is find a strategy that somehow does not involve Yang in the game. Yes, he has a CS lead, but he hasn't even played League of Legends at this point. He's been playing Farm Simulator in the top lane and now in the bot lane, while EDG is just winning the 4v4.
And you know, the longer this game goes, the more irrelevant that's going to become, because there's so much damage from such long range that Yang's not really going to be able to participate in these team fights if the gold lead continues to extend. You've got the stuns that are going to come out from Scout, you've got the Equalizer, you've got the curtain call. Realistically, I mean, Jace wants to play the poke battle, then be able to dive in and assassinate. But EDG's comp just plays the game from such long distance that that's not going to be a reality.
Yeah, when you're getting outrange, that's also pretty rough. Mouse has taken a few cheeky shots towards Jockster, but he knows enough to respect the distance. That pink ward that was cleared away.
Weón, se perdió, vieron que moví la weá y no está, weón.
Less than contested.
Tanto
Tower in
espalda,
the mid,
pañón.
parting shot from Yang though.
Yeah, he can't both. There's just like a follow-up here. Right now, he's
here we go.
to trap. This make it ugly.
Oh, headbutt pulverize. Equalizer's on. Macau standing right into it, but Mouse is gonna go down. Jockster burning. They have to trade aggro here, so they will secure that. That's the first kill for INTZ, but they traded for another dragon.
But if finally INTZ actually make a cross-map play, I mean, you see EDG, they want to play towards a dragon, they want to play towards mid-lane turret, so INTZ send Revolt atop and pull the trigger on a dive. That's well played.
Very, very smart player here. Looking at how they can see the bot side of the map. They try for a kill on a tower in the top lane. Right now, they need brute gold. They don't care about the stats that this dragon gives because they just need money in the bank right now. Yang in the bot lane playing too, getting engaged right now.
Oh boy, has to burn that flash ball. Clear love, the knock-up is there. The stun does not connect, but Tom Kench is coming in high. And they don't even need the curtain call. Mako with the finisher.
Yeah, really nicely played. I mean, we can compliment cross-map plays as much as we want, but Yang didn't respect the four-man squad that had just taken Dragon. They're going to give up a tier 2.
That's also the strength that Tom Kench support right here. The Abyssal Forge can deliver and make a seeming 2v1 into an instant 4v1, and it wasn't enough for Yang to hold. And another tower is getting put so low. EDG with massive objective pressure.
Yeah, and Jockster nearly bought it there as well. He had his flash, but he held on to it for all of that. INTZ do manage to force them off, but not before a lot of damage was done. And here's how it all began. Yeah,
Yang knows people are around. He's aggressively defending this wave. Tries to get out. Respects the flash, honestly. The knockup, it's too little, but then suddenly out of nowhere, there's an Abyssal Voyage, and random link plus curtain call would mean guaranteed death there for Yang. It's so hard to spot, but at the highest level, you need to respect these rotations.
Yeah, I don't think it's about spotting it. It's just that if you've seen a member, one member die to 3 members, there is always a cross-map play available, and you should respect it and just defend its turret and back away when multiple members show up. That was not the case here.
La weá no se puso en tu mochila que está colocada. Empecé a pegar la mochila y ahora se cayó.
To pull back towards his own base. They've invested in a lot of pink wards here. INTZ trying to spot the move of EDG, but it is just seeming like too little and too late.
Gotta keep tracking Yang though. He has damage. Just building that Hex Drinker. A good shot class from the flank that can't be stopped by the tanks. Quickly enough to put Scout or Def low enough on HP that they don't really want to fight. There's no QSS finish, so Revolt could turn the tides.
Yeah, Clear Love trying to take out this blue buff here. Should be able to secure it. Smite it, and Def just instantly goes on. Macau going down, slowed by the Equalizer, and Jockster's getting barbecued here. Has to run away. That is another pickup for EDG, and it looked like it was no sweat.
When your support just turns around and lets you die, that's when you know you're behind and you're done for. Jockster wanted none of that. He just was, he turned into a KDA player right there, died 3 times, and was like, I'm not dying for my AD carry again.
And one more time they do it with top lane setup, so that means another objective will fall right now for EDG. Credit one more time to INTZ. Yang was still bottom lane, he's still pushing in, trying to get gold for his squad, but at a certain point, you just have to group as 5 and try and fight, because they're like a wrecking ball right now.
This is not what their composition wanted to do, but it doesn't matter when you're already being pushed in sub 20 minutes. INTZ trying for a desperate charge to push them off. Deft in front, but he's still a very safe distance away. Meanwhile, Yang continuing to push on the bottom, but he is met by Mouse.
Voy a morir, mama.
You know, Mouse, this is all he's going to do. He's just going to keep catching waves. He's going to use the Equalizer in the team fight, then he's going to go back to base and catch the wave until he's actually in a position to be dove. It's not going to be all that much difficult, but this is another look at the red buff.
Yeah, they're trying to get some perspectives here, but it's actually quite interesting. Once the zone comes out from a curtain call, what the two champions want to do is they want to hide behind each other. And then actually Equalizer is a really good stylistic counter because it just punishes you for bunching up next to each other. At one point, Macau knows he's done for, sends Jockster away, but it's just a really strong opener. So EDG, if they're not contested in the fights and they can actually punish you for running away, they can do so much damage.
Clear Love just comes in and says, that's mine. Revolta wants to fight him over this one, 11 to 11, and in comes Yang, but Clear Love is speedy enough to get away, and he would be met by Deft and Mako the sooner this one goes, and that's just the story of it. You cannot even farm your own jungle at this point if you're INTZ.
And that's the thing about these global comps. I mean, Rek'Sai and Tahm Kench, 2 of the more, I guess, underutilized globals in their role you use for completely different reasons. I mean, heavy ganking out of the Rek'Sai as well as good vision control. This is a Brave contest. They're very far behind, and Yang's still top lane.
Yeah, INTZ is getting tired of getting everything stolen in their jungle here, so they're getting more decisive. Tom is obviously... Oh, there's that combo.
And Clear Love smiting. So he gets it away in the end.
Doesn't really value a blue buff too much on the Rex side. Scout being denied it itself is decent for INTZ. They're definitely looking for the silver lining on whole cloud of problems.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I mean, you could just see that the frustration was starting to show because the members had grouped up around that objective. But Vladimir was like, guys, I'm level 13, I'm also up 20 CS, maybe we can stall this one out. But the bottom lane in the jungle does not want to let that happen. Tucker's wanted nothing to the fight, and Macau, Jox, the Revolta, they're all in there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for INTZ just falling so far behind. They need to find anything they can to come back into it. And you almost got to wonder if maybe some of their ban priority was a little bit wonky. They did ban away the Aurelia that they didn't actually have any trouble dealing with when they last met. The Poppy was something that's made big plays, but the Globals they left open here. Obviously hadn't seen as much Tahm Kench, but that and Rek'Sai have really turned the tide.
Honestly, it feels like there's a lack of proactivity on the side of INTZ, and it is based in their draft. They have the losing matchup despite being purple side. They have a level 6 power spike jungler that got outpaced because of the roaming factor in the mid lane, and they're looking to make plays. Revolta still has yet to use his ulti in the entire game here. Rockstar denied his level 6 very early on, and now has the ulti out.
Having that opening to use Revolta's ultimate, and the poke that they'd have just hasn't been enough, and Scout is going to be able to walk away from that of Yang as well.
In their credit, the gold advantage has stayed relatively stable. It went from a 3,000 gold to maybe 3,500 for the longest time here. Now it's getting increased again here, but one good fight for INTZ could swing the control. Let's not forget that the Vladimir scales incredibly well into the lane game.
Yeah, and that's what you have to look at. You have to look at the fact that the solo laners are actually standing up relatively well. In fact, Vlad has a CS and experience advantage right now because of how active Scout has been around Submiser.
But they need that fight eventually, because every time they wait, EDG racks up another dragon, and if they had a slightly better RNG, they could be sitting on a couple of fire dragons here. They have the tools to combat the poke. You know, every 8 seconds that you're not hit, that Ocean Drake's going to kick in, despite if you're doing damage or not. So Yang really needs to land repetitive poke, otherwise the double Ocean is going to heal them up again.
Not to mention they're a little faster now with the Cloud Drake that they've been able to secure. Trap line down, and EDG just don't even care about it. They'll be able to polish off that tower. 5-3 in that objective mark. They are still running this one, and they get themselves 5k ahead in the gold game. Meanwhile, though, INTZ are trying to push on top.
Yeah, they're looking for a crossplay, but very good wards do spot them out. So now all of a sudden, EDG can continue to push.
Yeah, this Rumble is looking to cancel their backs. If anything, hopefully EDG can push on 4v3 them, but the minions evaporate too quickly, and the wall of traps is too much to get through here. So EDG likely going to base and look for more deep vision. Need to see and follow Mako and how he's going to distribute those wards alongside the map. So
Porque no me mosca así una caña culiada si la vi en la pared y después subió a mi mochila.
Double time with those traps, trying to make sure that EDG cannot push in, but it is looking like a slow march to victory for them now. Clear Love will run into Talkers in the mid lane, and nothing will come of it, just some cleared away minions.
And now they have shoved bottom lane in so far. You would expect a vision to be picked up, put into the red side of the map, try and steal that one away, and ultimately try and deny vision to set up for your Baron. When you have long-range engage like the Equalizer, like Syndra, as well as the Jhin, you can control vision and just go to town on that objective.
Yeah, EDG are looking to do more of the same. Lane assignments will switch. Mouse will go to the bottom lane. They'll put the 3-man squad in the top lane. Syndra is not a side lane mage. You're playing essentially a 1-1-3, where you then guide Mako and Clearlove into the jungle. Clearlove this time not playing Sidestone Rek'Sai. He has in the past, but he's gone for the full tank pit build router, so he's going to be the bodyguard for Mako to help him get those deep wards in.
Yeah, and I think that the one advantage, even though they can't play 1-3-1,
me
is
ganó,
the fact that Mako can take 2 members to that mid lane and, you know, swing it if they do want to get very aggressive on Scout, as well as the mid lane turret still being up. So really, aggression is negated.
Yeah, and that reason exactly is why Tahm Kench was lauded as probably the tier 1 support becoming into Worlds. Obviously, within a couple of weeks, the metagame can shift here, but that was one of his major strengths back in the game. He can be everywhere at once with good positioning in the river. Vagabond control is paramount here for INTZ. They have a Scuttle Crab left in front of Baron, but once that fades, they have no vision whatsoever in the river.
And definitely informs their really, really insanely good control on the map here.
That's exactly why they're posturing around the mid lane here. INTZ want to pressure mid lane push to force EDG out, but EDG is kind of aggressively staying in that river area.
Jockster is going to have to throw down the Unbreakable Will and tanking up the Curtain Call. He's got 2 of them now. The third, final, fourth one hits. In goes Clear Love. They want to finish the job here. Should be able to do it. Clear Love picking up the kill, shredding through the tank. Talkers on the retreat path, trying to 2-step his way to freedom. And he might just get out for now. 1 kill though picked up, and that's part of the front, big part of the front line gone for INTZ.
And look how non-committal EDG's comp is. They just keep him at arm's length the whole way. They chip them down. Finally, the ultimate runs out. Now they have access to that mid lane.
Revolta has to burn his flash, and Scout finishes him off anyways. EDG are just stiff-arming INTZ on this. Talkers with a desperate charge. In the pool he goes, and he nearly goes down. Hemoplague does not do a thing to EDG, and they get some chip damage on top of it.
Yeah, Talkers heals up at the end of that play. Dropped very low here. We saw Moz trying to thwart Yang in the bot lane because that's a saving grace. If Yang can somehow win that 1v1, they have a pressure point on the map. But right now, as long as Mouse can hold, it's looking very, very grim for INTZ.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I mean, EDG just want to keep taking the maximum here. Ballsy play on the blue buff.
Jockster, we've seen this before. He's going down. Scout finishes the job, this time in Talkers on the retreat path. It's the same old tune.
And that is the power of that gold lead that we were talking about. Mikau right now is under pressure. 1.
He knows he's a dead man.
2.
Oh, and the flash.
And
last one won't hit. All right, well, he's able to get out of harm's way that time around, but this gold gap just keeps on growing.
Yeah, and it's so centered in the tanks as well. Krilov is so far ahead of the other tanks that when INTZ kind of trade tank aggro on EDG, Krilov's not even getting chipped while they're burning through an ulted Alistar here. Just the sheer amount of damage coming out outside of the Chinese team here is just overwhelming for the Brazilians.
And this is the thing for Talkers right now. He needs to be able to get onto the backline because you can see when he hits Clearlove, it does nothing. But at the same time, you don't want to have to be able to rush because Clearlove as a soul tank is going to do much more than the Vladimir right now. So INTZ backs against the wall, have really no good options left. They can play the scaling card, but how do you keep EDG out?
You can't. As long as EDG played perfect right here, and that's what we need to judge. How well can they close? Correct lane assignments again. See Def picking up a little bit of farm here. It's going to group. Looks like they're centering around the next Dragon here. EDG very Dragon focused this game. They could move over to the left side and build on the foundation of pink wards that they have in the top left river, but they know they're so far ahead, and they know that barring any major mistakes, they will not kind of throw the game, so they're moving over their vision on the right side of the map, playing for that next Mountain Dragon.
Yeah, I think that the reason that they want to play around that so much is that the only way INTZ gets back into this game is a freak Baron accident. So why even play over the objective? Continue to accumulate your lead, get the Mountain Drake, and then look for your final play.
And they open up the curtain call once again. Clearlove, he's just there. You don't even need to do anything to put the fear into INTZ at this point, so shredding through a few more of their health bars, and Jockster a little bit lower now. And as you said, non-committal, they can just keep firing away. Yang's the only one who can really return at this range. Macau, maybe a little bit, but we've seen him get caught so many times. They just keep marching and pushing and taking down this tower slowly. The damage, the equalizer. Scout is on a rampage now. And they finish off Jockster, or look to do it in just a few more moments. Clearlove, and that's a double kill for Scout. They just keep on going. Talkers, he's trying for more, but Scout is just wrecking through the team. Clearlove will fall. Scout will pick up the Quadra. Can he get the final? No, he can't. Talkers with a big shutdown.
Yeah, and one more time, Scout goes over the wall, aggressive. Talkers keeps them out, but EDG come up huge in the team fight underneath their turret with a pretty suboptimal equalizer out of house, to be honest, because it left him in big harm's way. They're still able to pick up a clean team fight.
Yeah, Mao's prioritizing the early Zanias as well, both for the lane matchup and both as well for his role within the team. EDG still went out 4-4-2 in that exchange. All 4 kills going to Scout here, but the way he positions those spears, especially right here, the double stun here on Revolta, this is not the first time he's achieved this. He's just playing masterfully in these team fights.
All right, so the equalizer is good, but his positioning is very bad because he's stuck underneath the turret. Means Tom Kench can't dive with the rest of the team.
He gets dropped off into the wall by Mako here, so he walks back in. How does he die? Does he die? Oh, he makes it out.
He makes it out. He's one of the survivors. He's one of the lucky few.
Kind of crazy to think that that is, by the numbers, the worst fight EDG has had this game.
Yeah, INTZ has only picked up 3 kills, 3 towers in this entire game.
Big gold gap right now, 8,000 as we approach the 30-minute mark here, and everyone is eyeing the Baron. INTZ are the ones that are getting pretty nervous about it, though. EDG still playing out very cleanly despite that last fight.
But throughout the tournament, we've definitely seen mixed performances on this Syndra pick, and we've been shown here by Scout how to truly utilize it 1-6, you don't have kill pressure, but you have push pressure. So what do? You influence other lanes. Then later on, as you set up for the sieges, it is all about the sphere placements. You drop 3 in front of you, and then you shove them forward, radiating outwards, getting the entire lane in stun range, and then you catch whatever you hit.
Absolutely. And more to Scout as well. They played Pawn the last time these two guys met up, and it has just looked oh so clean. Pawn's no slouch, but I mean, Scout has just been magnificent in this game.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, Pawn is still a great team fighter, but the reason they like to use Scout is his ability to leave lane early. He's willing to play that team-focused game. There's now Yang being caught off.
Okay, Mouse is a little bit low, and Yang thinks he might be able to trade 1 for 1, but that's not happening. The gang squad's arrived, and he's dead.
The zoning equalizer, the best of all skill shots.
Tried to give him a red carpet to run down, and he just refused to be invited to the ball. Yang's that kind of guy.
And as a result, he'll have 35 more seconds to warm back up at Fountain. EDG can start to pull the trigger here if they want. There is Revolta in the back. This could still be dangerous, but they want to try and fight it out.
Baron jumping Rada quickly here, 7,000 right now, down to 6K here, but on the back end, the re-engage comes out.
And the teleport for Mouse, the curtain call is open, keeps on going. Jockster still trying to push him out. Mouse looking for a flank on in. They want to find Talkers for the damage. Macau keeping a respectful distance. They've got the stun. They can eat him right on up. Mako's there. Jockster's going down, and Talkers comes into the back line, but Deft says no way, and they are right onto the Baron.
And EDG just looks so controlled in these team fights. They're not overreaching. Mouse this time zones away 2 people, and they just clean up everyone else.
Yeah, Yang's coming in with a teleport. He needs a good combo here on Scout.
Oh, Scout just finishes the job. Right back on Baron. They go in for seconds, and this would be a miracle steal for Revolta. He is in full vision, and EDG are just controlling, not finishing off the Baron. They are waiting for the moment.
This is such great calm play here from EDG.
Out.
Completely unexpected, honestly, from a team outside the LPL Legion to keep that Baron on 1.5k HP. The communication required to do that is so impressive.
And you can see the clean burst comes out more importantly, and this is why we're so hyped about the EDG lineup. One more time, disciplined play. They layer the CC, open up with the ulti, and because of this location of teleport, there is no way for Macau or Revolta to rejoin.
Hey, look at the zone. Revolta and Macau are so stuck on outside of the fight. Do we go in or out? And then calmly, whatever's in front gets finished off by EDG. No panic. Calm and collect. They'll move into the Baron here. And again, we can't stress this enough. The fact that you realize Skarner has flash, we can't get to him. We're missing our abilities. And they keep the Baron outside of burst range for the INTZ team. And eventually, they realize they can't kill the Skarner. So they say, you know what, guys? We need to make something happen, so they call the burst there at the right frame.
Yeah, this is textbook how you prevent a Baron steal. Just waiting, buying the time, and Revolta in full vision. There's no way he's hitting this.
Yeah, the second the Jace EQ misses and gets soaked up by members, the call comes out. Skarner doesn't have enough challengers. Everybody hit the Baron, and the perfect smite for Philo.
Not to mention the level difference,
yeah,
too.
The 3-level difference means that's what they were waiting for. They're waiting for the EQ insta-flash to try and pick that one up, but unfortunately not going to come out. Good discipline play. Now the siege really begins in earnest.
Yeah, this is looking like the end game. Clearlove does get knocked up, but Jockster, oh, they open the curtain call on him. Macau's already low, has to net behind the entire team. He's got bodyguards, but they are starting to drop. This tower is going to be open, and they can finish off Revolta. No, he wiggles his way to freedom. That's going to be one tower, but they've got to go back and heal up on the Fountain, and meanwhile, their inhibitor's gone. All right, Talkers. Going a little bit too deep into this one. Has to pool his way to freedom, or is it? Protobelt, in goes Jockster once again. Desperation fight. Talkers tries to go one more time, but he gets exhausted. Deft takes down Jockster, and there just is not enough damage left in his composition. Yang on the side trying to find the kills. Scout just picks up yet another onto Macau. The damage is gone. Talkers is gonna go down just out of his pool, and Deft with a dominating kill.
EDG, they make it look easy, but there's a couple really sweet plays in that fight. That flash from Deft, another good double spear connect from the Syndra. So well oiled, so great teamwork as well. What a magnificent performance from EDG.
Absolutely, it only took them 35 minutes, and they have silenced any more critics we would have had about them. EDG take down INTZ.
And you have to look at the fashion that they do it in. I mean, being able to pick up a controlled, decisive victory where at every stage of the game, they were the proactive team.
And probably the favorite play still for me is the level 1. The fact that Clearlove has the presence of mind saying, you know what, I'll be leaning on the right side of the map with my plays and pressure. So what do I want to do? I want to secure the left side just to gain information. And he starts with the Wolf Smite, moves over, the Revolta invade gets thwarted because he suddenly is trying to jungle while somebody's watching you. It's really annoying when that Wolf Sprite is kind of watching you, so he has to get out of the jungle. Then Mouse dropped the ward there. Really just working as a unit from EDG. Impressive how they combine all these wards. So basically they have a toolkit of 5 trinkets, a couple of pushing laners, and they use it to completely choke out INTZ.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from INTZ. You know, they did...
EDG did enough of that already.
EDG just, yeah, completely throttled these guys, gave them almost no openings.
And I think the one strength they did have was that big CS advantage on Yang, but they could just never utilize it in team fights. And when you're playing against a team that has already won the rest of the map, the pressure that then goes on you, especially when you know you want to be split pushing against that Rumble, that's why they picked the matchup, just gets so increasingly difficult.
And Mouse held. That's all he had to do. He got the early Seeker's Arm Guard, didn't go for the super fast Leandries. He just held in his lane. When necessary, took a step back, put out the equalizer on the minions. He knew his role. His role was just to not die and then teleport in with team fights, and he was always ready. Revolta, we have to question the Skarner pick. It was power spiking too late. Barely got any ultimates off past level 11.
The whole
I think
team
was
power spiked a little late.
Yeah, everybody was getting just pushed in here. And on purple side, that's not something should happen in a draft.
But he's the catalyst. He's the person that's supposed to speed up this entire process. And when you've got these losing lanes, and then you pick a losing jungler as well, it's always going to make the game a little bit more difficult. And you know, it just put them in a hole they couldn't recover from this time.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be it for them. So now we're going to hand it off to the analyst desk to take a look at that EDG victory.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. What a way to start the day for the Chinese squad here. Just a very, very clean game out of them, and an accelerated early game, obviously. I mean, talking about the first 6 minutes there. Absolutely nuts. But before we get into the game itself, let's go ahead and take a little bit of a look at Champion Select.
Yeah, I like everything EDG did in this Champ Select, but I have a lot of issues with INTZ's way of drafting here. I think Jace Alistar makes sense if you actually want to flex the Jace and potentially put him mid against Syndra, rush a Hexdrinker, and then pick an early game jungler. You can actually bully the Syndra quite a bit, and you can have a strong lane then. So what I think actually they should have done, if we run down the list, is Skarner. I don't even know why you picked
Elise was on the board is the thing, because they could have gotten rid of some of their early game weaknesses if they picked that. But then even with the Skarner, the biggest problem I have with the draft here is the way they played the game around it. Contesting an early blue buff invade when you're weaker with every champion on that side of the map, to me is inexcusable.
Well, I mean, just picking the Skarner in the first place is not okay here because Tahm Kench is already picked. So you can only use ulti on Skarner if Tahm Kench is not there or on the Tahm Kench itself. And that is definitely not what you want from this jungle pick. And when you then pick the Vladimir as the counter into Syndra, you give up mid lane pressure. When you then also give jungle pressure by taking the Skarner, you now have a losing part of the map in the middle. Your bot lane is going to get pushed in as well. That gives you 2 losing lanes instantly in terms of getting pushed to tower. And that means you can't play early game at all in this meta. And I think they could have gone like Jace mid, Elise jungle, Ken in top lane. You had 2 winning solo laners, or stronger solo laners, and a good early game jungler instead.
And Jat, you're talking about early game uh-ohs for INTZ in terms of contestation, but that also means early game dominance for EDG, and I want to take a look at that, brought to you by Acer here. This is a string of replays that accumulated what was a 3K gold lead within the first 6 minutes of the game.
And specifically, this speaks to Revolta's mind not being in the right place, because they should not have tried to contest this blue buff. Once EDG made the move to roam 4 people there, you have to give it up. You're picking losing lanes for the late game scaling. The only thing that's going to screw you over is if the other team can crush you in the early game, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and this play here is so beautiful. They get the mid lane push around the Syndra pick. They go bot instantly. Skarner is nowhere around. They actually just saw him recall, and it's just so smooth, so clean. They didn't have to work for it at all. 6 minutes, already 3 kills up, and here we see the dive again.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it all starts from the draft with these mid lane getting pushed in, bot lane getting pushed in for the dives. Now, after you've gotten such a big advantage, you can start roaming. They can go top lane to the one winning lane INTZ did have, which was top. Yang got killed here. Big advantage all across the map for EDG.
Yeah, and the tragic thing for me here about INTZ is they were down 7,000 gold or 3,000 gold at 7 minutes. They were down 4,000 gold at 20 minutes. So they could have actually stalled out to get Vladimir into teamfight phase if they were just willing to concede some of their objectives, but they weren't.
Right, It wasn't until that 23-minute mark where we saw that tier 2 in the bot lane finally go down. That seemed to be the catalyst for EDG to start blowing the game wide open. And if there would be a criticism that you would throw at EDG, it was maybe perhaps the fact that they couldn't balloon that 3K as quick or any quicker. But still, that's me struggling to find a way to criticize them in a very clean game.
Exactly, and the way the game works, obviously, between like 10 and 25 minutes, it is very difficult to to snowball even further, because diving tier 2 towers is very hard with their support also like Tahm Kench, who's a more defensive support and not necessarily an Alistar who would dive in and just tank the tower for you. Also, you can't really rush a Baron because it's not alive for most of that time, and when it finally is alive, you want to give it a few minutes, you want to be a little bit stronger, and you don't want to risk losing a Baron fight. Funny things, though, when we talk about Baron fights, that was kind of the one moment for INTZ to get back. They butchered that fight as well. But it's also the moment where Revolta used his first Skarner ulti. 32 minutes into the game.
We did it.
Not what you want to hear.
Definitely
that should not be the highlight of your analyst desk segment as a team. But I do want to push this to player of the game here, going to Scout this time around. And Clement, let's talk a little bit about the differences between Scout and Pawn, because this team has looked fabulous with Scout, especially with those roams to the side lane and on Syndra.
Yeah, exactly. They drafted it on really well. They know they were going to get the pushing mid lane. They were willing to give the counter pick over there, and he just moves other lanes so much faster. I think a big point about him being the key player of the game is that he got so many picks underneath the turret. Those stuns were really amazing. You saw 3 balls going out, and he's stunning 2-3 people at the same time and slowing them down. He got a quadra kill that game, so I think it has to go to him.
And just real quickly, Jat, looking forward, I think for INTZ, this might be tough mentally to suffer a loss at the very beginning of the day, but we have to remember that, yeah, sure, you beat them in week 1. EDG is the team that's expected to come out #1 seed here. It has to be about heads held high and looking towards those H2K and AHU games later in the day.
Yeah, they're 1-3, so the scenarios in which they get out of the group are getting slimmer and slimmer every game they play. But yes, they absolutely need to get in the mindset that they can play a normal game and win, because when I saw that game, especially early game, they were trying to hit home runs from the 3-minute mark, and they are actually better than that. They don't have to play that way, and that's how they'll beat AHQ and H2K if it happens.
All right, well, we're just getting started here today. When we come back, AHQ takes on H2K. You're watching Worlds 2016.
Take that look from off your face, 'cause you ain't never gonna burn my heart out.
Oh, there is no way they're getting out of this one. Only flash from Macau, and he's gonna go down! Unleash the power, level 6. He's gonna burn it now, but Mako and Scout and Def go right on top of him. Throws down the hammer. Def gets eaten up, saves his life! And that's a double kill for Scout. They just keep on going. Talkers, he's trying for more. EDG take down INTZ.
I just take every game one by one, so I don't mind the crowd, I don't mind the stage, but the feeling that I'm on world stage and I'm playing in front of a big audience, I guess, and the fact that I'm playing with the best players in the world is overwhelming, and it's just great to be here and to test my skills against like the smartest and the best players.
One of the more solid junglers we have from EU. Welcome back, everybody, to the 2016 Worlds Group Stage. Next on the docket, AHQ Esports from the LMS are battling against Europe's H2K. That was quite a close one the last time the teams faced off, gentlemen. H2K held a lead in pretty much a good chunk of the game, all the early game, all the way into the mid, and then HQ claimed victory after 50 minutes.
Yeah, they certainly did, and they did it with some great posturing around objectives and being able to thwart any aggression that was coming out of this H2K lineup. In saying that, H2K led through every single lane. I mean, this game should not have been close because they had such a big early advantage.
Yeah, we basically saw everything we were saying about H2K come to light. They have incredibly strong laning phase, but they struggle in the mid to late game, especially when things get a little difficult, because they seem to have very kind of committed communication. Once they opt in for a play, they will never be flexible enough to kind of change the path they're going on, especially apparent in Baron dances. It's very hard for them to pivot on the fly, or once they commit for a fight, very rarely, due to the nature of their communication, will they actually back out, start kiting to different directions, switch targets, so they kind of all in it to win it, or they're done for.
Yeah, another area you see that, I think, is the bottom lane turret push. As you can see that Forgiven is very committed to being able to take that down, and it does bite them a little bit.
Forgiven plays beyond the edge of safety sometimes. That's why he gets those large CS leads, but that's why he also gets so frustrated very often, because people are going to gank you. That far up in the lane, jungler's going to swing by, whether it's through lane behind you, and people will give it the attention that it's needed, because it's so easy sometimes to stop it.
Yeah, and this is something that wasn't really punished all that much in EU, especially you look at Forgiven's career, and he's just always known as that like sidestepping guy that just dodges all the skill shots. You can't do that against the ADCs here at Worlds. These are some of the best in the world. We talked about it coming into it, that some of the top ADCs all over the world, especially, this is a stacked Worlds this year. And H2K, I mean, they've got a tough task for them. If they want a chance to get out of groups, they're going to need some dominant lane picks. They're going to need to get ahead really, really early.
It's definitely a style H2K need to develop as they go further into the tournament, but when they play against the likes of INTZ and AHQ, we have to be honest, this style can still be played by H2K because they have the far superior bot lane on paper.
100%, that's where I want to look at. Even though Ziv has been great, Arn has been underwhelming for me. 24% damage last time these guys played, and it was a 50-minute Jinx game. I mean, that's just not acceptable. There's a reason his top lane is sitting at 37%, and that's because him and Westor, they're just not doing enough.
Yeah, 37 damage percent for a top laner is absolutely incredulous.
It should not
happen. It doesn't mean at one point your top laner isn't playing so well that he has that high damage percent. It only comes from people failing to play their roles adequately, and that is what happens very often for HQ in the mid and bot lane. However, they work like a team. They have really good late game macro. They showed it in their regionals as well, and that's how they pull back into the game.
Yep, let's take a look at those starting lineups. For AHQ Esports, Ziv in the top lane. He's the one with those high damage numbers. Mountain in the jungle. Westor starts on mid today. On and Albus make up the bot lane, and their coach, Green Tea.
And they're going up against the hope of Europe on the other side. It is H2K. Top lane is still Oduwamne. Jungle is Jankos. Ryu's in the mid lane. Forgiven is the AD carry. Vander is his support. And probably is bringing some North American flavor to this H2K lineup.
And when I look at this H2K lineup, I think that, you know, 3 of these members should be picking for lane. It is going to be Ryu, it's going to be Vanda, and it's going to be Forgiven. I think that Yankos as well as Odawamne are the 2 more flexible players. They can actually look like they have great communication with each other and can set up a lot of these late game fights. So I really do think that's a recipe for success coming into this game.
It's up to Odawamne to keep Ziv contained in the top lane and then have H2K play that style where they win the lanes. If they could mimic some of the early game that EDG showed us here in game 1, where they actually push in mid, rotate, or they translate advantages in specific lanes onto the map, I think then H2K could become a great team because they have the laning prowess. However, they never translate these advantages in one lane into another. They seem very isolated in their lanes.
And they should be able to do it against AHQ because this is a team that if you get ahead will seed until the team fighting phase of the game. And we saw it against EDG. You can build a big enough lead that just doesn't matter. So craft the comp that you want and then look to exploit the lanes, and AHQ will play on the back foot.
All right, so into the picks and bans, AHQ ban away the Syndra, the Olaf, and a Nidalee, a couple of jungle bans as well as that very standard one in the mid. And HDK are focusing a lot more on the globals. Tom Kench banned away, and of course, respecting the Westor TF.
Albus is a great Tom Kench player, and you always have to ban TF against Westor. It's like the unwritten law of League of Legends, because he is very lackluster on the current alternatives.
Yeah, it's just a get out of jail free card for him, really. If he's able to play what is a pseudo control mage, good CC as well as global presence, he's going to pick that one up, and he plays it in quite a defensive manner in the early game, then just uses it to help his side lanes out.
Wow, so surprising. They're actually thinking of Karma over the likes of an early jungler like an Elise here. There's 2 still laning dominant supports here in the Karma and Nami available, so they could neutralize each other later. Obviously, a blue side flex pick is very useful to have, but I think the Karma first pick would be a bit of a waste.
Yeah, we have seen a few teams fall into the trap, trying to flex that one and just not having near enough damage. But the Karma is locked in for HQ. This gives H2K the option to pick up some of those strong jungling picks for themselves.
And let me tell you why I think it's a big waste. Because Forgiven is a very good Caitlyn player, and we know that it's a Crux that he will fall back on in pressure situations like this. And Nami, as well as Caitlyn, is oppressive in the laning phase because the passive speeds Caitlyn up into range of that first auto attack, then there's no real way to get away from the harass.
But that's if H2K opted very deep for the laning phase, and maybe after reflecting on week 1, they say, you know what, we can get by with maybe an Alistar in lane on Vander and Forgiven. Go somewhat even in CS, maybe up slightly, and then have a larger teamfight presence and more margin for error in the later stages of the game with Vander on a playmaker. That could also be a good pivot for them coming to week 2.
Absolutely. We'll have to see if they end up taking it. I mean, we've seen Yankos take 3 different jungling picks in their games, but of course they've only picked up 1 win so far. We won't see that locked in just yet because it looks like we've got the Alistar Caitlyn lane. This is exactly what Forgiven and Vander want.
Score 1 for Crepo right there. They picked the lane dominant AD carry, but they picked the utility team fighting support.
Yeah, and it's obviously a meta evolution. This is not the first time we've seen Alistar and Caitlyn paired together, so we don't have to go over the strengths. We can instead start looking at AHQ. How are they going to react? What is Anna and Albus going to play? They don't have the Tom Kench, which is a really easy melee support to play into there. Are they going to go for the Braum later on and say, you know what, we'll match you teamfight presence support for teamfight presence support? Or are they trying to kind of break to 2v2, just like Deft and Mako did?
Yeah, we'll see whether they do that. The only other option I can really see is, you know, maybe you go ANX styling and just like the Taric holds up okay in the laning phase, can keep you topped off against what is a very long range AD carry, and we will beat you at the late game because we have the superior ultimate in terms of invulnerability.
But it does look like AHQ is already looking towards the future of the mid to late game with a